hold it a little bit.
Okay, sure. So we are back for part 2. I'm with Dr.
Dr.
X, which stands for?
Dr. Experience, experiences of my life,
And
life of talking, and the life of other people who I've talked to.
Perfect. And Dr. Experience, we really appreciate that you're with us. And I am Sanjay Paul, of course, and I also have a lot of life experience too, but I love to learn from other people. And what we're going to be talking about today is, well, in this segment, is couples that have passion and couples that don't have passion, or why it fizzles. We started talking about that in part 1, so if you can, please check out part 1. The other thing that we also wanted to add was we're going to talk about the key ingredients of finding, we've been through, both of us have been through a number of relationships, so maybe we can offer some perspectives or start a dialogue in the blog below. Not to replace any kind of professional help, but what we can notice is what makes relationships more effective at particular times than others.
The patterns.
The patterns, and then kind of why you're on the right track. And let me give you a couple examples. Well, we'll start by saying this, Dr. Experience, I'm interested. I noticed that a lot of women like guys that have things going on for them. So that's a big one. Like
Confident guys.
Yeah, confident guys. Like I have a buddy that is in the military, nice-looking guy. He's also he's a police officer, still is. And so fit, he goes to the gym. And then anything else that he has is bonus. Now, obviously, it depends on the kind of woman that's interested in it.
Sure.
But that's already, you're bringing something to the table if the person values that.
The woman want a confident man. They want a guy that makes decent money, doesn't have to be rich.
So McDonald's would be a good idea for a perfect date, or?
Not really. Women enjoy a nice dinner. Nothing fast food, just a nice, out-of-the-way, romantic place.
You know what's funny, Dr. Experience? I dated, quite a few years ago, a woman that dated celebrities. And I didn't share this with you at one of our earlier conversations, but what was interesting is I said, well, she liked that I had things going on, but I said, why aren't you with some of the celebrities? She said many of them don't pay for her when they go out. They don't treat her like, I couldn't believe it, because they're so used to the world revolving around them. So she explained it to me that they don't have to put forth the effort. Now, this is not to say this is every celebrity. These are she had 2 or 3 that she went out with, and one that she was dating long term, and some were sports figures, entertainment industry figures.
Because those guys are famous, and they got women lined up 12 deep. And they figure, what the heck? I don't have to really impress this woman.
Even though they're rich and famous, I don't get it.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I'm not sure. I've never been rich and famous. But it could be an ego thing. I mean, let's face it. If you're a famous athlete or an actor, you're going to have a lot of women after you. Attractive women.
You mean to watch the games, or to
watch the game and try to meet you after the game in the in the area where the play. I mean, it's well known on the golf tour, the PGA. The groupies are just everywhere.
But maybe they just want golfing lessons. Maybe they want to play mini golf or like in a side course or something. They
want a famous husband who makes good money. And then you got to remember, on the PGA, you have more access to the players. I mean, you're not on the green with them or on the tee, but you're pretty close. They have a lot of corporate tents and parties where you can meet the players. And, Major League Baseball, when the players come out to their parking lot, there's people waiting for autographs. There's a lot of women waiting for those type of guys,
And does it work the other way around?
As far as what? The other way, exactly.
Meaning like guys waiting for women, or if the person's same sex, maybe there's some other situations.
I don't think you see it so much in that scenario, because most of your famous athletes are men. I mean, there are famous women athletes, but I've never heard of the groupies, the guys going after the women. And I don't know. When you talk about actresses, I'm sure there's a lot of guys that would like to be with some of those actresses.
Well, I can tell you, too, from personal experience, one of the songs that I wrote while living in Brazil was inspired by, and you'll be hearing about it later on, I wrote it in 1999 to 2000? It was in 99, actually. I do remember the fall of 99. and it was inspired by a famous singer, and she had the looks, the confidence, the dance skills. So I felt that, there's an infatuation kind of love.
Mhm.
In psychology, we talk about that. So a lot of people idealize. They're infatuated with someone.
Sure.
So here's this ideal that she embodied the whole country, the passion, the energy, the looks. And so in one song, I spent like a while writing the song, and I'm very happy with the song, and I want to actually release it and just target that audience down there and see if just to honor her.
Right.
But I actually had a couple women upset down there that the song was written for that famous singer, and they said, "What about the rest of us?" So one of them said, "What about the rest of us?" And I said, "You know what? I'm going to rewrite it because this is a person that I have in an idealized version for. Didn't even meet her." And I'm saying is she embodies everything that I could in that song. But what I think is, bottom line is whoever you're dating or interested in, and it wasn't that. It wasn't that I was interested in her in that way. What I think is we idealize people, and then we distance ourselves. So, if you know that you can idealize a famous person, then you don't have to really reveal yourself because, I might get the autograph, I might see the person, I might be inspired by them, but I don't have to meet them. But it's not a real true connection if you don't connect with someone.
Well, anybody famous we tend to put on a pedestal.
Right.
And the bottom line, they're still human. They may have more money, they may have the fame, but if you're one-on-one with them or marry them or in a relationship with them, they're basically just human. They may have more money, more ways to enjoy life because of their fame and their fortune and their money,
So how do you know if you find someone that's for you? When you don't ask that question? You see what I'm saying? Or should you constantly be reevaluating the dating relationship that you're with? The person in the dating relationship.
As far as when it comes to fame and money or just anything?
Just in general.
Yeah. Well, that's a tough question.
For the viewers here.
I think if you over-evaluate somebody, you're going to start finding everything that might be wrong with them. If you overanalyze them, right? Because none of us are perfect. You got to look at their good points.
I think so. I think that accepting a real appraisal of who the person is and not trying to change them. So that means that if you date a drug addict.
Well, that's a good question about changing somebody. How many times have you been in a relationship where the first 3 months, 6 months, everything's perfect? That person's telling you, I've never been treated this well. I've never done so many things with one person. I really enjoy being with you. And just when you think things are at their best, maybe not perfect, but at their best, the bottom falls out. Now, you know when that happens? A lot of women are insecure and have trust issues. They're insecure because of things that have happened to them in the past, breakups with their husband or ex-boyfriends. So what happens when things are going really good?
Speak a little louder into that.
When things are going really well and they've had bad experiences in the past, they can't believe it's going this well. So they do something that initially sabotages the relationship. Not totally sabotages it, but they do something that sort of upsets the apple cart.
But would you also agree that what you described is applicable to men as well?
Oh yeah, men get afraid. Well, the old saying, men get cold feet the night before the wedding. Yeah, men run from women when they know it's got really serious because they're like, okay, I'm going to have to make the decision. Am I going to be with this woman the rest of my life? Have a family with her,
Actually,
or am I going to move on and still want to be that single guy dating different women,
I actually had a friend who he was a really good friend for many years. He did have this happen. She got cold feet. They had already sent out the wedding invitations. They had to cancel the wedding. They spent all this money on everything. So he got a little bummed. He went to Dairy Queen. After apparently that day, got a blizzard or something, and the woman that gave him the blizzard at Dairy Queen ended up being his wife after about a year or so.
Sounds like a movie.
Yeah. It must have been some blizzard. I don't know what was in that blizzard, but I'm just saying, But because what I've seen is in the other case that I told you about in part one about the situation where the wife was having an affair on the husband. He found he found somebody else and married in 1 year. Wow. And I don't know about the custody situation, but I know that he was going for the kids. But why I'm sharing this is because there's some people, hell or high water, they will move on. And I don't mean to use the word help, but
They will move on.
they will move on.
Find a way to get out of it.
Oh, because whether it's by choice or not by choice, in both of those cases, the women decided in a way. But like you said, there are things that happened relationally that led to it.
Sure.
But I think being honest is something about something is important. Like I won't date women that eat seafood. I will not date women or that smoke. And these are superficial things, but you just kind of know that, because you have to be able to see whether or not you're in a situation with someone. Can you see yourself with? Are you interested in the same things?
Yeah, because basically one of the big questions now people ask when they start a relationship or when they go on one of the dating sites, are you interested in a serious relationship,
Oh yes.
which means leads to living together or marriage, or are you interested in just dating? So, right there, what you just brought up, that's something you want to bring up front. And a lot of times, I think everybody's torn whether they want to be in a permanent relationship or just, date. It's hard after you've been single so long. I mean, because a lot of times you're like, boy, do I really want to be with that same person for a long time, And so...
Well, Dr. Experience, this is kind of interesting because when somebody's asking that question, it's interesting to look at why they're asking that question,
Sure.
right? So what I've noticed is people, and I've observed a lot of healthy relationships, there isn't this idea that even if there was the thought, there isn't this idea that anything would ever happen. I've even seen couples that would never have, it's never come across them. What they always describe is that I'm dating my best friend. They're always describing the person as the best friend. It doesn't mean that they don't have boundaries, in those areas of life or other situations, but they say that they can do everything with that person, yet have the time off.
I've been in a relationship like that.
So what was it like?
Well, it started out fast. It started out great, sexual. And then after a few months, the wall was put up, and it's just like, well, let's just be best friends. And we did a lot of things together for a long time. And you thought, boy, how could we not evolve even further? You know what I'm saying? And then we would be together again, romantically. And then that would break apart for a while, and back to friends. It was like that person didn't want to let me go, and I didn't want to leave either, hoping it would work out. But it's hard to figure out sometimes, because a lot of times that person, man or woman's, got a fear of a serious relationship because they don't want to be hurt, because they've been hurt before. And
So-
there's the big thing with the trust issue.
So they put up the wall.
They put up the wall, and when they put up that wall, that's sort of part of that sabotage I'm talking about. You've heard the saying, let's slow things down, let's cool things off. That's a bad thing to say, because that just means we're going to go to a lower level of what we want.
Well, I mean, also counseling can be helpful. Like if you have somebody going through individual counseling and then having maybe a relational type of counseling to kind of analyze family or relationship. A really good book, relationship patterns. A good book is called The New People Making by Virginia Satir, S-A-T-I-R. Another good book is called Reinventing Your Life by Klosko and Young. Reinventing Your Life by Klosko, K-L-O-S-K-O, and Young, Y-O-U-N-G. And one of the things I've also found with couples that are really successful together at that time in their lives, what it is, and I've observed this in relationships that I've been in that have been successful.
Is that with older couples now?
I've noticed this throughout, and what I mean is there's a dedication. I even know of situations where in college, like I introduced a hometown friend to a gal that they ended up getting married, and they have kids now, and so he's from my hometown. One day I even remember the day that they met through me, and my roommate and I, and then it ended up being my roommate dated this one gal, and then the friend from the hometown dated another gal, and that led to something. My roommate didn't end up marrying the other one. It kind of ended it after a while. But why I'm sharing this is he eventually did, and she eventually did.
It sounds like they were all together as a group, as friends.
Yes, a lot of people say that there's a credibility factor. See, if you meet like a woman, or in whatever case you're in, the guy, or whatever the situation is, and your friends are kind of okay with that person, you kind of are walking in similar circles.
Sure.
So what happens is...
There's that approval
Yes, there's
from your peers.
Yes, for example, you might think this is superficial, but...
Just like the show Friends. I mean,
And that,
think about it.
explain, say a little more about that. We're actually going to have a video clip on Friendship too.
Well, they all started out as friends,
Right.
knowing each other from school or living together in the same apartment complex. Look how many of them got romantically involved or married. It was sort of like a musical chairs, wasn't it? And they were all sort of attracted to each other in a way. I mean, if you watch the show over the 8 years it was on, it seems like everybody was with somebody else at one point. They were all interacting together.
Yeah, and that's kind of like Beverly Hills 90210 in some ways. There's a little bit of that in
Yeah.
that series. I was thinking about that series. The
They're
other day.
friends, but there's that
Get a little
sexual, not tension, but that
chemistry.
chemistry going on there. Yeah.
Well,
At times they don't want to cross that boundary because they want to stay all friends, but at times they can't help themselves, because they are so close.
Well, I think that this is interesting as far as what you mentioned about boundaries. I think that takes a lot of maturing and growth, even through your 30s sometimes,
Sure.
where people have crossed boundaries, have known cases. I mean, anyone can. Oh, sorry for the blender in the background. But we can all admit that we've made mistakes in relationships, or knowing what I now know, I probably wouldn't have done that, or. But I think when you get to, as you grow and mature, you kind of realize that it's not even an option. What I mean is, like, for example, if you have a friend, and I've even lost out on opportunities where I was in college, where somebody was interested in someone, she was a model, and she liked me, and she was a real great gal, but a friend liked her, and she didn't like him. And I didn't know him too well, but I started to get to know him. But it was kind of like, she's off limits because I liked her. It doesn't matter if she doesn't like me.
I had the same experience.
Well, I want to hear, but she ended up dating somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
That guy, then she lived with that guy, and that was his friend also. I'm like, what the heck happened there?
Yeah.
But there's situations where if we're not careful, we might cross boundaries to meet our needs when it's not appropriate to do so.
Right.
So there's this idea of whether it's moral or legal or whatever it is, we blind our feelings of loneliness or connection, and we try to find a way to meet the needs. We don't even realize that sometimes we're doing those things.
Right.
But I think when you get to a certain age, you realize, I'm just speaking in general. You realize that, wow, that's not even an option. I mean, it hasn't been like your buddy is, you're not going to still date somebody. But what happened in your situation? What did you learn from it?
Well, I was with somebody, and then after we parted ways, after a couple years, her best friend was interested in me. Shortly after that, she said she was always interested in me. So it does happen because if you're in a group with people, friends, and you're dating somebody, and they have their friends around, and then you break up with somebody, and then their friends are interested in being with you, that you're afraid to go to that boundary because you're trying to be respectful for the person that you broke up with.
Yes.
Especially when they live in close proximity, and you're going to have to see them again most likely, or you're going to end up breaking up their friendship,
Well, I also think that it also depends on how a situation's handled. There's some people that come around to it and accept it eventually. Some people don't. They're bitter. A lot of it depends on the perception of the other person that they have on a situation.
Or if that person that you broke up with found somebody.
Yes, that's
and
right.
they're happy. Then they're like, okay, it's okay now. But if they're still alone, it's not okay,
I don't know if it was Dr. Henry Cloud that mentioned this in one of his dating books. He has a lot of great books on dating and relationships and boundaries in dating. But he suggests, and I think some other relationship experts suggest, that you should not see an ex for like 6 months. If you are going to ever see an ex again, you don't have to have any bad terms or anything. You want to be in another relationship, as you said. You want to give it 6 months or more. And he also says 6 months to date again, if I'm not mistaken. And there's someone else that has said, and it's mentioned this in some relationship kind of book, that, in other words, you don't want to get committed.
Right,
So you don't want to go right back into a relationship. And so it's kind of interesting. Everyone seems to be talking about the 6 month dynamic, but if you're not dating seriously, what they're saying is, some people say 5 dates, some experts say 5 dates a week, but don't get seriously committed for that 6 months. And then in the 6 month period, if you do get committed at the end of it, then you could introduce, is what I'm piecing together. But there seems to be this 6-month kind of window. But I think at some point, you really need to know whether you're on a train going somewhere or you're at the caboose that's going to be detached and fall off the rail.
Speaking of
or
the
fly off the
6-month thing, I've met women that have approached me or I've approached them, and they just got out of a relationship and it's over. And they're like, they want to see you and date you, but they're like, they don't want it to go too fast because in their mind and their heart, they're still putting that last relationship behind them.
Yeah, it's interesting because there is the processing of that past relationship.
Plus, in the back of their mind, even if it was an ugly breakup and things really didn't work, in the back of their mind and in their heart, they're hoping that person comes back and it works out again.
Oh, so they're keeping that option open.
Optional, yes. Because how many times have you dated a woman where that's happened, or you're dating her and she's got her eye on somebody else too, but she's weighing what's going to be the best for her, which is her option, and men do it too. So I guess you could call that playing the field, or so that's the thing about dating. If you're out here dating, I don't care what age, you have to be ready to accept rejection. If you're going to put yourself out there, it's not always going to work. You have to enjoy the experience.
But don't you also find, Dr. Experience, this is great, that I think that's so true. I think knowing that rejection isn't personal is a big one. Like, even if you were to have a gathering and people don't show up, or things don't work out, or somebody doesn't call you back, like a friend or a date or something, what you can do is you can kind of reach out to people and kind of say, I was expecting this, but you don't have to get worked up, or you don't. But the way you want to be treated is important. You just don't have to personalize it to the extent of where you think of the person as a damnable villain, as Albert Ellis says, the cognitive behavior.
The worst thing you can do is on your first date or two with a person think that's the person, because in most cases it's not going to be. So you have to enjoy the experience. Enjoy the experience of meeting somebody new, talking to them about their life, where they're from, their different cultures, their different experiences. Enjoy the whole experience and accept it for what it is.
And leave it at that.
Leave it at that, but if it goes further, that's great. But enjoy the moment. That way you're more relaxed on the date too. How many people are nervous on the first date? They want to make a great impression and everything, which is fine. But if you're thinking you're so nervous because you want this to work so bad,
yeah, it's like you're so desperate.
You're so desperate because maybe she's the hottest girl you ever went out with, and you just really want this to work, and you're just hoping this is it.
I think almost detaching and taking a step back and seeing where it's going is important. Mm-hmm. Because I want to give you a case where there was a friend of mine, a really nice guy, and he had things going for him, but he was dating a woman who had 2 kids. Well, he never wanted kids. Mm-hmm. And there was that 4-year mark, she wanted commitment. And the commitment meant you accept me and my kids.
And the kids. If you're going to date any woman with kids, and believe me, I had that experience, you better accept the children
early on.
And
whenever you meet them.
And one of the toughest things I found is it's not the toughest thing. It's the toughest for the man if he's dating a woman. It's the mother-son relationship. Never get between a mother and her son. I don't care if the kid's 2, 22, or 12.
What about the mother and the daughter?
That's a little easier for men. The daughters are more accepting. The sons are very jealous and very they're very protective of mom. And mothers are very tight with their sons. And if it comes down to you or the son, even if the son's in the wrong, you're gone. You're gone. Believe me. It's just the fact. So if you're dating a woman and there's a 13, 14-year-old son in the household, or even a 16, 20-year-old, it can be a challenge for you, even if the boys like you, or the young men. Because in the end, if they don't like the situation, mom's going to side with them.
So dating, now to wrap up a lot of the points that we discussed, what you're saying is whether there's passion or not in the relationships, a lot of it has to go on common interests, values, the timing.
Yeah, but a common interest...
Well, there has to be. You go to the gym all the time. You're pretty buff. Does she have to go to the gym?
No. really it doesn't. Sometimes the old saying, opposites attract. I mean, I don't want somebody who's not taking care of themselves.
So you do agree that there are some must-haves, there's some nice-to-haves. You hear a lot of experts
Yeah,
talk about
there's a
that,
balance.
and some that it's nice but not necessary,
Right, sure.
and some non-negotiables.
I mean,
where-
some guys
or
are-
some negatives.
Right. I mean, it's
Deal breakers.
say if a guy works out, he golfs, he fishes, he does tennis, whatever. She doesn't necessarily have to do those things. Those are things that he can do that are away from her, which keep things fresh.
But where do they connect? Because I heard that 4 to 7 activities. If you have 4 to 7 activities, that's fine. But once you start getting past 7 activities where you're not with your significant other, you're spending more time apart. You'll get ripped apart.
That's true. That's true. So you need other activities like maybe, oh, I don't know, name anything. Watching movies together,
Oh, yeah.
shopping together. Women love it to go shopping.
I had a wonderful date where I did go to the movie.
I have too.
And
You know, helping them pick out clothes. Yes.
there you go.
You know, it's just simple things.
Yeah, I think what I've also noticed too is that a lot of women value people with creativity. They don't want, like, they'll usually ask you what you think is nice. They're really saying put some effort and thought into where we're
Yes,
going.
women like it if you pick them up and you know what nice restaurant you're taking them to,
Right.
and they know what you got planned.
What did you
Because-
say, McDonald's or Wendy's? Like, just go take them through the drive.
Well, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. But if you pick them up and you're already confident that you have a nice restaurant picked out, and you have plans for the rest of the week, it's a movie, or you're going to a club, or anything, a walk in the park. As long as you're confident enough to make the plans, they hate it when you pick them up and you say, all right, where do you want to eat? What do you want to do? Because then they feel like they're under the gun, they're under the pressure to pick the right thing. If you already pick it and it goes wrong, that's on you. They don't have to worry about it. But if you put a little thought into it, all you got to do is put a half hour to an hour into it.
But then it can go far.
You can go far, yes.
All right, now stay tuned because this is leading to our next topic on dating disasters. Dr. Experience, thank you for this.
You're quite welcome.